Hello and welcome to the episode of Live with MightyHive on the new GA, Getting More for Less, and Where to Invest the Savings. Thank you so much for joining us. We're happy to have you. I'm your host today, Brianna Mersey. I'm the team lead for the data team at MightyHive. And I'm happy to welcome Sayf Sharif and Zamira Khamidova of MightyHive as our guests today. Sayf and Zamira are both experts in Google Analytics, have had years of experience with the platform, and are going to spend some time today talking to us about Google Analytics, the new version of GA, and its impact on marketers and how to get the most out of it. So to begin, we'd like to get everyone participating and just get a feel for where our attendees are at with their new GA implementation. So if you could take a second and just fill out this poll we have for you. You might be fully implemented but are interested in finding out more about the new version and how you can get the most out of it, or you might only have done partially implemented the GA4. Or you may have not started. So that's all fine. We're just trying to get a gauge, and then we can share that with you guys as well, so we all know where everyone's at. Okay. All right, so while we give everyone a minute or so to get their results in, I just wanted to share a little about MightyHive. MightyHive is a new breed of media consultancy, and we're a global leader in advanced marketing and advertising technologies. MightyHive provides consulting and services for media operations and training, data strategy, and analytics. You can see a few of our esteemed clients on the right. And if you have any questions or you want to learn more about us, please visit our website, mightyhive.com, or feel free to email us directly at questions@mightyhive.com. Yeah, we'd love to hear from you. As a reminder, this video will be recorded and all the slides will be sent to everyone. So no need to scribble down any notes, just sit back and enjoy, listen to the conversation. There will be a Q&A at the end, and we definitely encourage you to ask some questions and participate. You'll see a QA widget on your screen. So yeah, definitely please send us a question towards the end. Okay, so I think we should be able to review the results. Let's take a look. So, okay, so fully implemented, so that's about a quarter, so it's almost split evenly. So a quarter of the attendees have completed, a quarter are partially completed, and I've run into a few snags, which is not abnormal. And then, okay, so we have 25% looking forward to getting up and running, and then about 23% who haven't started. So that's great. We're gonna cover information at all levels, so I think you'll get something out of this, at whatever stage you're at. All right. So essentially, the new GA platform is rolling out, and there really aren't going to be any tough decisions regarding whether you should adopt this or not, because you have to. So Universal Analytics is not going to be renewed as of 2022 next year. You can, there are some exceptions that you can talk to Google or your partner about, but for most clients, everyone will be moving forward into the new GA. And one important point here, super important point, is that the data sets are not backward compatible. So if you don't set up your property now or soon, you won't have that backfill of historical data to use when next year you want to do some year-on-year comparisons. So that's an important item. And yeah, essentially you should try to get that property stood up as soon as possible, even if there's no custom tracking. It's the best thing to do for your reporting needs. So we're not going to spend a lot of time running through the features of new GA and the capabilities. We just wanted to highlight a few key important aspects that are worth discussing. If you do want more information, I mean, you'll have the slide deck, and we're happy to discuss this if you want to talk to us about like a one-on-one about features or moving forward. We're certainly happy to facilitate that with you. But just at a high level, Really, the new GA benefits are like the predictive and durable audiences and metrics, the automated custom insights, automated custom events, the fact that you have app plus web data in the same place. The GMP integrations are well, BigQuery is essentially free if you're not on the 360, so that's something really new. The machine learning is way more advanced. There's better AI capabilities. It's really, although it's not mature yet, this product, when it is finally mature, it's going to way surpass Universal Analytics. It's just been built with a way stronger, more robust fundamental system. So it's good. It's good news. So basically, I mean, at the foundation of this product, it was built as a cross-device by design. So now we have a reporting platform where we can see web plus app data all in one place. And that's something that had to be reconstructed because Universal Analytics and Firebase, they weren't able to be combined because of the way the data models were set up. So now we have this great platform that's being rolled out, higher unsampled data, more flexible reporting, and higher data thresholds. Something really important to point out, and we're not going to get into the weeds of the technicalities, but it is important to say that the data model has changed with new GA, and it's not the same as Universal Analytics, our current data model. The Universal Analytics model is based on sessions, and we have page views that are hits and events that are hits. And now moving forward, we don't really, the platform isn't based on sessions, it's based on users, and that means you get a more holistic view of the journey because we're not segmenting by time, we're actually collecting all the data all the data points from a user. And another thing is that page views are now considered events. And what that means for you is that in your reporting, you can now, if you want to see a pathing analysis or a funnel report, you can actually pull in a page view. So did they land on this thank you page? Did they then, sign up for a newsletter? So you can start to standardize your reporting and bring in different data points that used to be separate. So, and just one other quick point is that the sessions are counted differently. And so when you do look at reports from new GA and Universal, they are not going to have the same numbers. It's sort of looking at Adobe and Google Analytics. You shouldn't be trying to compare them because, yeah, the way that the data is collected is slightly different. Okay, and then so for just the last point we wanted to bring up is really the user ID capability. It's way more advanced than Universal Analytics. So in Universal Analytics, we had our view, user ID view, and that was sort of it, and that was good at the time. Google's realized that user ID and user journey information is super important for marketers to get the full picture. And so what they've done is they've built in different ways to track a user, and that's sort of like the GA client ID cookie, but also your user agent on your computer, Google Signals, and then authentication. So there's a lot more ways they're able to piece together who that visitor is, and you get the benefits of that. You can start to get more insight into the user journey. And then just a quick overview, we wanted to point out some success stories from our clients. For example, Walmart Chile has increased their conversions, and Eon Power is a European electricity company, and they also were able to enhance their analysis, and also Zomato. So I'm not going to get into the details of it, but just wanted to show you that we have had some great results already. And I think it'll just get better, and we'll be having more success stories as we go. Now the platform fees. This is a topic, important topic that we'll talk about more with our panelists. But just to give you an overview, what Google has announced is that the pricing is essentially going to drop for most clients. It does depend on your hit level, but if you are under 500 million hits a month, you will see a reduced monthly price. And so the pricing starts now at 50,000 US, and that's for 25 million hits a month. Once you get higher than that, you are charged at a band of 10 million hits. So for every extra 10 million hits you have that month, you get charged $10.50 US. And then once you hit 500 million, you get charged at $2.50. So it actually curbs down. So the more hits you get after 500 million, the less you will pay. But we really think that we're going to see a reduction in people's yearly costs because of this. So that's a great opportunity. And hopefully that was a good overview of the new GA for everyone here. We're going to go in and dive a bit deeper with our panelists. I can't imagine two people who know more about the new GA than our panelists today. So we have our Senior Director of Data, Sayf Sharif, who is an analytics celebrity, we call him here. Sayf, do you want to say a couple words?
Yeah, I'm Sayf Sharif. I'm the Senior Director of Data for North America for US and Canada. And I am not a celebrity. Thank you very much.
Thanks. And next we have Zamira Khamidova. She's our Director of Data in North America. She's worked in the UK for a number of years and now in North America and has a ton of experience.
Hi everyone, I'm Zamira. I'm Director of Data in North America and excited to discuss GA4 with you.
Great, thank you. So without further ado, we can jump into some questions for you both. So to get started, for the people here right now who may think of GA as just another update that they are required to do, can one of you talk about how the new GA will likely impact marketers the most? Like, what's the ROI on the new GA? Maybe, Sayf, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, I mean, I think before getting into like the specific ROIs or making it sound like case studies, the big thing here is that you're going to have to change. This is the future of Google Analytics, and it is coming. It's been coming for a while. This is the biggest change to Google Analytics since it was Google Analytics before it came from Urchin before that. So all the future development, everything going into Google Analytics for the future is going to be in the new GA. So it's imperative really for any ROI that people adopt it. I don't think Google has announced, I would be surprised if they were to turn off the old GA, but the old GA, the current GA 360 will be turned off. So if you are particularly using that, it's really imperative to move forward with that, and one of those aspects would be, if we're getting into the specifics, I'd pass it to Zamira too, but the one for me is the BigQuery integration is a big one for me about getting that data into the cloud so you can tie it to other data, other media data or offline data or zero-party data or whatever that you have in your control. So I think the ROI is all ROI is from that. So Zamira.
I think what I wanted to add is that new GA doesn't have an arbitrary notion of a session or sessionization the way we used to. So that's a big change because the data model has changed now. That means we need to learn and adapt to the new reality and how we measure. And it's done for a reason. So originally, a notion of a session was created as an arbitrary measure, right? Just it's 30 minutes of inactivity, and Adobe has its own. If you ask developers, it will be another option. So then everyone had the different meaning. So now at least that point of conflict, I would say, or point of misunderstanding is now gone, and there's a new reality. We all based on users, and ideally signed in users wherever possible. So that data now is actually more robust than we used to have it in the universal analytics before.
Yeah. Yeah, I think from the clients that I've spoken to as well, they are really nervous that sessions are not the same and it's not session based, and how those new dashboards are going to look. Like, that's quite a concern, and moving all the dashboards over to GA4, like all the replication. So it's definitely, yeah, important, worth mentioning. What are the differences between the capabilities of new GA and GA360 as far as you see them? Sam, do you want to?
Yeah, I can keep talking about it for like hours and hours. So I'll probably try to highlight the biggest changes for me because I am most excited about them. So the first one is predictive audiences and use of AI in different aspects and features of GA4 or new GA, also known as new GA. So this is a big change because there was always a question of, okay, we collected the data, what are we going to do with this? Someone needed to analyze, someone needed to see the patterns, someone needed to notice some changes or abnormalities. So the new features will allow to explore and to see those abnormalities or changes quite quickly, and also automatically create some audiences using machine learning. So this is for me the biggest change that I can see. Other things were customized reporting and more granular notifications. So I know GA was amazing. It had 150 plus reports, but lots of people wouldn't need those 150 reports. They would need only, they would be interested in only the specific reports or specific way of segmentation. And now you have an option to customize a report based on the needs of the users and based on the type of users that access the data. So then they don't need to be lost in the other reports that they don't need to see and they don't know how to use. So these are for me the two biggest features that I just love. So I'm pretty sure other people might have other favorites.
Sayf, do you have anything? Top three, top two?
I mean, like, I mean, I think you already hit on it, but for me, just like the more customized reporting is the thing that always just comes to mind first, and that's what I was thinking of. Just kind of reducing down from here are these standard reports and making it more pertinent to a business, I think is a key aspect. And also, I maybe it's more esoteric, but I just like the data model better. I think it's as long as you have good data governance and things like that for it, I like it. It's cleaner, just from that perspective, and more flexible, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a screenshot of the predictive audiences right now, but just to go back to that too, they're great. Like, once you have a certain amount of data, I think there's a certain amount of historical data you need, and you get all these. So it's fully customized based on your data set, and they say, oh, well, we want this. We think this group would be good for you. We think this group, and it's just the automation they've done and all the wizards too is really great to get that set up. Okay, next question. The pricing was recently announced, as we just mentioned. Can you walk us through how it works and what it'll likely mean for most brands? Dave, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, I mean, I think, especially, I think it's a huge opportunity for mid-market companies or even smaller. A lot of people would balk at the 150K price tag, especially when they're on the smaller side. And having that be chopped into, potentially a third of that for smaller brands is a huge opportunity to get into the enterprise platform. There's plenty of companies that we work with and have worked with over the years where, they're 10 million hits a month. They need some aspect, right? They need the unsampled data, or they need the BigQuery integration, or they need, they need the Salesforce integration. There's some aspect that they really need, and they're paying the same cost for that tool as the company that has 500 million hits, right? Where now coming in that lower level, it's much more kind of a smooth curve for payment over time. And being able to utilize that enterprise, I think, is a huge opportunity. Dropping the cost. It is going to potentially, one thing to note here is, especially for companies with high seasonality, you could see much bigger kind of spike changes. So the company that did have kind of 10 million hits a month, except for, you know, their flower delivery and Father's Day and Mother's Day and Valentine's Day, they have massive spikes up to, you know, up to whatever. So that, you know, you're going to have that budget planning in there for planning on that, because it's going to, you could have those massive monthly spikes on that. You know, but it's an opportunity, I think, even for people to not necessarily look at this as like reducing your budgets, but putting it into people. You know, one of the things I've said for a long time is, if you have only $150,000 to spend, you're better off putting that into the free tool and then people, whether it's internal hires or an agency or whatever else, to get the most use out of it. So this is just another opportunity for companies to take that budget and you know, not necessarily give it to some other department, but to invest in their data in some way. And so there's a lot of opportunity there.
Yeah, so essentially, I mean, a lot of companies are going to save money, which is great. So I guess the next question is, should they be pocketing the money, like keeping that budget, or what do you think is the best option moving forward?
I think at first, I would really love the teams to invest in education, in training, because as we mentioned many times, it's a new data model, right? And I'm pretty sure there will be lots of things that at the moment hinge on the GA data. So you need to understand what the implications are and how to use the new data. And in order to be able to use that the most efficiently, you need to understand how it works. And this is where the training comes into place. Training, a lot of training, and ability to understand the differences between the old way of measuring, and ideally, maybe just revisit the way you measure things. Maybe you don't need to get apples to apples. Maybe you just need to change the mindset and just work a different way. So which means revisit the strategy of measurement and why you need this measurement the way you've done it. Maybe it's outgrown. Maybe it's organically been growing and it's all out of date.
And with the new data model, I think you really have to look at the measurement plan. You can't just not review it. It's gonna be a mess. Your data won't be the way you like it.
Yeah, probably not should, maybe just actually you have to do that. Invest in training, understand the differences, and also revisit the whole measurement strategy.
Yeah, one thing I would say is just, you know, I mentioned data governance before, but just, you know, one of the things I like to say is that data is entropic, and that as soon as you start collecting it, it's going to start falling apart, whether a developer pushes some new code to the site or someone publishes a tag that's wrong, you know, with a wrong trigger or something like that. And, you know, we work with so many companies where if you take your eye off the ball with your data for too long, you get into a bad situation. So this is, by reducing your technology costs, it could be something where you're able to put something more towards investing in maintaining that data, where if you weren't able to before, in addition to training. I don't think I ever met anyone with unlimited resources, and we're doing literally everything we want to do with our data. We have all the resources we need, right? So, you know, there could be companies out there that are like that, and they can take this, you know, the savings and put it into some other aspect of digital marketing, and kudos on them. But I think for most people, you know, most people are fighting for every dollar they can get, and they have to make choices, and this gives them more choices that they can make about how they want to spend that money.
Yeah, I mean, if your company's at a maturity level like X and you want to get to Y, now is a great time to like look at data science, or do you want special pathing reports, or, you know, what else do you want to find out? This is the perfect time to do that, and to reset your measurement. I mean, you have to start fresh with GA4. So take this opportunity, clean up your data, get rid of stuff you don't use, fix the naming conventions, make it exactly the way you want it. And use that budget to get the support you need. Maybe you want, you know, optimization using Optimize, or like I said, data science. There's so many different things.
Yeah. We're seeing that
you
with
can
so many
do.
clients where they're using this as the opportunity to say, our data actually hasn't been helping out everybody in our company from like whatever team or whatever aspect of their digital marketing has not been great for their use cases up to this point, and they're just seeing this as an opportunity to kind of like get that refreshed on, have a better data strategy going forward, and implement for that for the future.
Yeah, you're not worried about deleting this report or this event because you think someone might be using it even though you don't know who that is, but you're just worried that there's repercussions. Now you don't have to worry about that. You can just go forward. So lots of opportunity for upping your analytics solution. And then so for mobile apps, so like iOS, Android, and what are the opportunities there? Zamira, do you want to take that one?
I think the biggest pain point of the previous models was that you had the app measurement in Firebase and the web measurement in Universal Analytics. I know there was also Universal Analytics for apps, obviously a few generations ago, but it was really difficult to combine the two together. It would require extra skills to trying to put it all together and make sense of them, because the cookies and the client IDs and lots of identifiers were so different. So it was a big data science project, essentially, in order to make this happen. So with the new GA4 and the Google Signals and user ID, simple authentication measurement, it's now becomes much more simple to measure cross-platform and omni-channel. So we've talked about that earlier this year. One of our retail clients actually created a new app. So there was a collaboration with in terms of making the app better, and then the new audience interaction frameworks. So they just worked on improving the app, and also were able to measure the app and web interactions and point of sale data together. And it took much less effort than it would have taken 2 years ago. So the new platform helped a lot. So then we could see extra 30 million omni-channel revenue, and quite a few and a lot of app reward signups. So yeah, any client that has both app and web, this is your time of glory.
Yeah. Sayf, do you want to add anything?
No, that sums it up.
Okay, so what have been some of the biggest snags that you guys have seen so far as far as implementation goes? Like where are some of the rabbit holes that people should be aware of?
Well, you're asking this question, and I know you know the answer to this because you've had some of these snags. But I think not planning correctly, not really devoting enough time or thinking about your internal resources. Something you just said like 2 questions ago, where it's like, hey, we don't need to worry about this goal anymore. It made me think about where, if you're not planning on, what if that goal is being used by someone in, like your McDonald's, and you're someone in Brazil is using that goal in a report to talk about like how many McRibs were sold or whatever, right? Like, if you're not aware of that, then you don't import that into your new implementation. You're not tracking the right thing. You're not building out the right dashboards. It's just, well, I guess they're not selling any more McRibs in Brazil, right? So, I think there's a lot of consideration to go in here. There's great automatic there's a number of people that have released a lot of these good tools to kind of teleport over your implementation and that kind of stuff. I just wary just to make sure you have what you have what you need to actually put it out in planning, and then developer resources if you need them and things like that. There's a lot of stuff where people hit snags of not having enough internal resources, not have the right planning, along that.
Zamira, did you want to add anything?
I think only two items. Number one is that your data will be affected. Sorry, not the data. Everyone who's using the data will be affected, right? So as Sayf mentioned, like API or any other like spreadsheets or BigQuery, anything like that will be affected when you move to the new platform. So lack of communication and communication silos between the departments is also a big snag. So we want to make sure that you communicate with the teams, even if it's not your team, maybe it's a data science or business intelligence team. You communicate about the change with the other teams.
Yeah. One other thing too that I've seen is that clients think that they don't really need to review like how that migration is going to work and how the events are going to map up, and trying to warn them and help them support them in their transition plan, because I don't want to get too technical, but like GTAG, for example, will automatically map your event, and it will take your event action and make it the event name. And you might not want that if it's just like a click or a submit or something that's not really intuitive. So it could be, I have seen some areas where the migration plan wasn't researched enough and recommended events weren't used. And so just be careful if you're about to jump. Just make sure you read up or chat to us or your partner before you move forward. Do you guys have any examples of new GA implementations for clients that were the clients were impacted in a significant or meaningful way? Zamira, you had.
Yeah, as I just mentioned before, we had a client, Ace Hardware, so that's a hardware retailer. They have both online capabilities as well as the offline. So it sounds simple. You buy online, you buy offline, in store, job done. However, with pandemic, there were a lot of instances when you would order online and then pick offline somewhere in the store. So all of that, that measurement, that adds extra complexity. So thanks to the GA4 and BigQuery integration, cross-platform measurement and the BigQuery integration with other platforms actually made this process much more seamless than we originally anticipated. So that's a great kudos to the platform. I mean, it's early wins, obviously, but it has a lot of potential for anyone who has multiple platforms and multiple touch points with the customers.
Yeah, great example. And then in terms of new GA fitting into a company's overall digital transformation, how do you feel how central is that to brands now with this new product? Maybe Sayf.
Yeah, I mean, of course, like digital transformation is like this sort of new buzzword that won't. It's just in every conversation it seems to be. I think it depends obviously on the brand. If the web stream of data or your app stream of data or the combination of the two are important, then this is obviously pretty central to capturing that. Whether that is, and especially when we think about new privacy, like the cookies changing. I hate the death of the cookie kind of statement because they're not dying, it's just changing. But the more importance of first party data, zeroth party data, or whatever else, like getting a good data collection here and then tying it to whatever else you're doing is just really important. I mean, that's really kind of the core of digital transformation is bringing together your data. And so, if you're at all interested in Google Analytics, if you have any kind of digital presence, like this is sort of central to that. I don't know.
Yeah, 100%. Zamira, did you want to add anything?
I think the Sayf summed it up really well.
Covered it. Okay. So in your esteemed opinions, what do you think the drawback of is if you wait for a last minute implementation? Like what do you foresee happening?
I think the biggest issue is that the data is not backwards compatible, right? So if you don't start collecting the data now, there will be no machine learning and model audiences. There will be no historical data to compare with or see the year-on-year changes. So that's the biggest drawback. So get it now, even if it's something very simple, so you understand the high-level metrics. Just do it now. And second biggest pain point is that all the new features, all the new shiny toys will be only on the new platform, right? So you won't get anything new on Universal. It might just do the job for you, for your business, but if you're thinking about the future proofing, about thinking like 3 years ahead, 5 years ahead, you better be on the new platform now rather than waiting for the last minute change.
Yeah, I mean, Google stopped putting any engineering time into Universal Analytics. Everything is going into GA4, new GA. So the features that they're building out, they're going to be building out more and more on top of like the recommended events that they have. So really you want to get in on that, get in onto the betas if you can. Yeah, now's the time. And also get comfortable playing with the reports. Like get your team looking at the reporting now, how to set it up. The interface is slightly different, so it will take, there's going to be a learning curve. Now's the time to do that. So you're ready next year to move forward.
I'll play the conservative at this point and devil's advocate or whatever. But I on the one hand, I think anytime doing last minute implementation for anything tends to be a bad idea, right? Like, I don't care what you're implementing. Are you building a house? Like, are you doing it at the last minute? Like, that's probably bad, right? Like, you're probably, if you have to do it last minute, you're limited in time. That means it's either going to cost you a lot of money or it's going to be shabby, right? So you should certainly take your time, right? But when is last minute is a different question, right? So like, you should take your time to do it correctly and appropriately. You shouldn't rush, right? But that doesn't necessarily also mean that, oh my gosh, guys, we have to do it today. Like, you don't have to do it today, but you should be thinking about it and you should be planning for it, because you could have a company that has they've done all the right things and they've built out their implementation and they've got everything tied to it. And they've got hundreds of dashboards and reports and analysis and like audiences and whatever else, right? And now you're coming to them and saying, you need to do this today. It's like, well, you don't need it. You're gonna need to do it, right? Especially if you're on 360. But if you're someone who's using the free tool, you're not really interested in the enterprise features, like, I don't think there's no rush, right? But you should think about it as far as the future and when you could do that, and then take your time doing that. But in particular for enterprise customers, there is going to be that date where the current GA360 is going to go away, right? And so you can't even sign up necessarily just like out of the blue for the new Google Analytics 360 until next year, right? But you should be planning for it. It doesn't mean Jan 1, like, we got to switch over. You could wait till, July or November. You don't have to be an early adopter, right? But especially if you're enterprise, if you use 360, you're gonna have to do it. And so make your plan your budget. If you want to do it next year and you want to have like whatever else, yes, to Zamira's point, you're not going to necessarily have a year over year, 1 year of historical data or whatever else. You got to think about that depending on whether that's something you utilize. But whatever that is, you have time. It's not something where it's like, oh my gosh, we have to do it last minute right now. We're still early enough that you don't need to do it right now and be an early adopter, but you got to start planning for it so that you're not doing it last minute.
Yeah, you don't want to rush it. And I think setting up the property, because that's a low level of effort, is something that you should consider doing, but you can roll that out in a phased approach and you do not have to start doing custom tagging now. Take the time, review the measurement plan, stand up the property as soon as you can, but otherwise you do have time. Do you guys feel there's any big considerations in adopting new GA4? Like any reasons why not?
I mean, depending on what you use currently, it might not be fully featured for you yet. Like for instance, like with like the Salesforce integration or other things, they're gonna get rolled out. And you know, it's a new, again, like it's like the early adopter thing. It's gonna change, it's gonna develop. There's gonna be bugs in it. There's gonna be differences, right? So I think there's a lot of stuff regarding like, is it free? Is it a feature set that is matching what you need to have right now? Is it working for you? That kind of thing. But I think, you know, getting back to the earlier point too, I think a big consideration if you're going to adopt it, thinking about its strategy, implementation, all that kind of stuff is something you can take your time to do right now. But I think the big thing is just understand, again, like we mentioned a couple of times, because it's a huge change in the data model. It's a huge change. It's not backwards compatible without a lot of work, right? It's something where you gotta, you know, like we mentioned before, you gotta understand if someone has a dashboard for McRib sales in Brazil. Like you gotta understand if someone is using that audience that you created, right? Depending on how complex your implementation is, like if you don't consider all those aspects, if everybody who's touching your data, they use an API to pull it into Google Sheets or whatever else, like if you make a switch over, you got to make sure it's comprehensive and it's working. So like the big consideration is, I think, that, as well as then taking your time to make sure it's feature ready for you.
Yeah. I mean, there are a few bugs as well. There's some known bugs, so. So last question from my side is just around privacy. So is the new GA going to have any new privacy regulations or policies or anything to help owners or clients deal with the new privacy issues coming up?
Yeah, I'll take that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Back in 2018, there was a big bang, right? So the GDPR kicked in EMEA, and I was there at the time. So it was a big deal. It wasn't something light. It was 4% fine, or like 4% of your GDP of a company globally. So there were no jokes anymore about privacy and about respecting users' choice and users' consent. So there are some regions, after that, there were a few other legislations happening around the globe. And if your region doesn't have it, it will. At some point it will. So it's great to have privacy and ethical data collection now in your mindset. So GA has a great feature, consent mode, that allows you to get the foundation right for this collection and to respect the user's consent. You do need to have the consent management platform for that, but once you have it, you will see a lot of benefits because Google Analytics allows you to model the data for those people who have not consented. So that's going back again to the machine learning and predictive audiences. This feature will allow you to, in a respectful way, to still collect the data and still to have robust data that you can yourself, marketers, or optimization teams can make decisions, hypotheses, and plan this strategy going forward.
Yeah, makes sense. Sayf, did you want to add anything? No, good. Okay, so let's take a look at our questions from the audience. So we have one question here. Whoops, let me just pull it up. Hold on. Come back. Okay, so should we attempt to make our own version of sessions in a platform like BQ? It's a good question. Sam or
Sayf loves the new data model, so I will let him talk about that.
I mean, like, should we attempt? Absolutely. Like why wouldn't you want to attempt? I think, like, you know, to me, it's like, if it's something that you think would be valuable for your strategy, for your insight, like for your business, like you should always, like, you know, it's like science, right? Like you should always attempt it. I think that the question I would pass to Zamira would be, like when would you think that would be something that you would kind of like, how would you hypothesize, should we, implement this? Like, where do you think that could be useful? Or would you not think?
I think it goes back to the idea like of what you used to doing, right? Sometimes it's a habit of reporting the channels one way, reporting the conversions on the sessionized way. What about changing your perspective to the user level? Like if user has completed a certain action, or if user has completed X number of actions and did X and then Y and then Z. So there is do you really need a session? Because quite a few instances, it's all about the key outcomes and the key interactions, right? You're thinking about the KPIs. Like, do you need a session to measure KPIs? And do you need to think about each channel competing against each other? Because the sessionization is needed to be able to attribute, at the moment, the way we understand it, to attribute the right source or the right channel to the success, right, to the outcome. So do you need to think of each channel competing with each other, or do you actually need to think about your channel portfolio and how they work together in order to achieve a certain interaction from a user? So my question would be just thinking about that first, thinking of revisiting the way you measure and the way you used to measure. Habit is like the greatest thing ever, like, right? But sometimes there is a time to just sit down and revisit that, rethink about that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with you. I mean, like my challenge would be, again, like it depends on the business, right? Like if I pull back and think about like real world kind of human behavior, right? There's lots of data about like your restaurant, visiting, like how likely you are to come back to a restaurant after your first visit to the session, your first session in a restaurant, to your second session in a restaurant, your third session in a restaurant, and like what things you can measure, right? Humans, we think we're individual snowflakes. We all do the same dumb stuff like all the time, right? And so like, or at least the majority do, right? And so like you can see like if we can do this in this visit and then this in this visit, and if we can get them to come for a third visit, then we have them, right? And there's a lot of other marketing, merchandising kind of stuff where it's, it's not necessarily about getting that first conversion in the first session, but it's about getting the second one, right? And so other businesses, it's about the third or whatever. And some websites, it's a one-page scrolling thing, and like it's hard to say like how long are they active, when does what is a session. But you could say like we have a very like kind of tight site that if someone is not clicking on something within a minute, we don't have a lot of stuff to read, or like we're going to call each page different from whatever else, but we want people moving through it. But if they stop for 5 minutes, right, forget the 30 minutes, like they stop for 5 minutes, like we have not been successful. So like if that is important to your business, and that if we don't get them in that first set of interactions to do X, we can show an analysis in their first set of interactions within a certain amount of time that if they do X, then we're going to see this positive correlation later, or we can do, we want to do whatever. Then, I think having a session, however you want to define it, makes sense in that regard, right? So it's just based on your business, right?
Yeah, the level of effort. I know that when GA4 App Plus Web first came out, there was like hardly any session related metrics or custom dimensions, and there was a big outcry because people were used to sessions. And so now there are more session based metrics. I think they have like a session time start metric available, so you could probably create those. But again, it's up to you whether you want to invest the time in that. But I think they'll probably build out sessions a bit more as well, but it won't be the same as it is now. So follow-up question, based on the response that you guys just gave, what does this do to attribution modeling? And Zamira, you touched on that with the session base, but for GA4, I mean, now we have different attribution modeling, right? Maybe you want to.
Yeah, I think there are some metrics and some events that are inferred to the session type of metric, right? As you said, like session start, and or engage session. So there is a word of, it's like this, the word session did not go away. It's there, just like measures slightly differently. And so that still allows you to see the channel performance against those metrics or those events. Maybe not in the easy way that you used to. Speaking of the attribution, data attribution, we have an amazing team of data scientists that do a lot of magic. I call it always magic. When they analyze the channel performance, in not just in one way, because about the data attribution, okay, the normal GA data attribution at the moment, like last non-direct click, it's also not ideal, right? So depending on the business, you might have different models that actually how you attribute the credit of the conversion to a specific channel. So there's no ideal attribution scenario. There's one that actually fits, an attribution model that fits your business. So I would say just that there will be a little extra data science team involvement that will help you to come up with your attribution model.
And in the new GA user interface under acquisition reports, we now have, it's not the session-based ones we're used to in Universal Analytics. There's a user level attribution report, and there's a hit level attribution report. Sorry, so there's a user and a hit level, so entry. And I've seen clients pull in the session-based attribution parameters that they're used to, and the reports don't make sense. So I think it's actually just worth mentioning that now it's user or last session-based attribution. And then on top of that, Google has just, for the new GA4, released that there's a data attribution modeling in the settings now. You can go under there. There's only last click available for the settings, but you can choose your time frame. And that's only the beginning of that feature that's being rolled out. There will be more attribution models coming out, I think, in the next 6 months. Does anyone have any other questions? Anyone want to use the widget? We've got time for another one or two. Otherwise, looks like we'll probably just wrap it up. So I think that's it. So yeah, thank you so much for joining us. We hope that you got some useful information out of the chat with our panelists. Thank you, Zamira and Sayf, for joining us. That was great. Got to pick your brains. Goodbye for now, and hope to see you at the next Live with MightyHive. Take care.